Downtown Lafayette is getting a brand new mixed-use development with over 200 residential units called Convent and Lee. I'm super excited to have my good friend and special guest, Johnny Blancher, the owner of Rock and Bowl, who's going to be bringing this new vision to downtown. In addition to being a successful business owner, Johnny is also a passionate advocate for revitalizing downtown Lafayette, and he's got some really exciting news that he's going to share with us today. We're really thrilled to discuss this brand new real estate development that is going to transform and possibly be a catalyst to downtown Lafayette, and Johnny is here to give us all the details. Johnny, thank you so much, man. I'm actually honored and grateful to have you as a friend and a client and have you here to discuss this, just your journey, really. I mean, I know this is just the next chapter of your journey is the big announcement that you made this week. So, but for the people who don't know you and don't know your story, which I think it's very interesting how you ended up in Lafayette, why don't you share with people who is Johnny Blanchard and your whole family?
Sure. No, and Jim, thank you. I mean, thanks. I'm honored to come on and of course, honored to be a friend as well. I mean, it's now been quite a while.
Yeah.
It seems like I just arrived in Lafayette, but really it goes back to my childhood. My mother's from Vermilion Parish, grew up on a cattle ranch down there. She's a Cuvion, and then
was she related to the sheriff?
Yeah. That's Mike is Sheriff Mike Cuvion's my mother's first cousins.
Okay,
yeah, he's
cool.
a cousin, and of course plenty of cousins down there. And of course I had family in Lafayette.
Right. I mean, that was the tie. Was your mom?
That's right. That's right. And
so how did she end up with a guy from New Orleans?
Well, so my father, was a baseball player in college, played his first year at Loyola University. Back then they were a D1 program. It was disbanded because of, funds issues going on at Loyola and that I won't get into. But he ended up at Northwestern State up in Natchitoches and met my mother. And also met a great friend who we ended up becoming friends through.
That's right.
In Al Lopez, who we miss dearly.
What a character.
Oh gosh, one of the greatest. And but he and my dad, of course, were really good friends up there. And he was an equipment guy in the athletic department.
That's right.
And my father and him, they used to have just this great relationship of banter. And through the years, we kept in touch. Well, he kept in touch. Oh, Al was unbelievable at it. It was fun. It's probably what I missed the most. And so when Katrina hit, not to fast forward too much, but when Katrina hit, we evacuated to Lafayette. It was just the most natural thing for us to do because we had family here, and we were pretty desperate. I mean, we turned out with 15 of us in my aunt and uncle's house, the Andreponts here in Lafayette, and plus the Andreponts. There was a lot of people there and dogs and all that, and they took us in, and we're driving around and we see an Al Lopez sign. We're looking for a house, obviously.
Right.
Al, found us that perfect house to get everybody
right off of West Bayou.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. West Bayou and Roselawn.
That's right.
It was one of those genius moments, so to speak, from he and my father talking about it. That you remember prices just it escalated all across South Louisiana, and my dad says, give me a list of the properties that nobody wants. Like, I want a list of everything that was on the market 3 months before Katrina and everything, and yet still is.
Right.
And that house popped up, and the reason was it was all chopped up.
Yep.
So we could fit every single family we had in that house.
So it worked for you guys.
Yeah. It was not good for ananybody else. It was not good for resale either. But it worked out great.
So I just going to Katrina, because I remember that. Literally, I can't remember. Katrina happened. Everybody started evacuating, but it wasn't for like 2 weeks until they figured out, well, dude, we're not going back.
Not even going back, maybe.
And so then everybody, literally we went. That was the only other time, like, we're in the lowest inventory we've ever seen now, like in the last 24 months. But Katrina, literally we had pretty much nothing left.
Right, it got wiped out.
Yeah, like within a matter of 30 days, like everything was gone.
Yeah,
That's like a mad dash for a house.
it was quite.
And we had people like, man, I can get 100,000 more for my house right now, and I was like, well, where are you gonna go?
Yeah.
He's like, well, I'll move in with my parents. So I mean, some people.
It's funny we're talking about this because just yesterday I was sitting at breakfast with a fellow that was telling me a story about how he sold his home after Katrina because this guy drives up and says, hey, you wouldn't happen to be selling? He's like, no, man, I'm not. But he's cutting his grass.
Yeah.
I said, well, what a perfect time to ask somebody if you want to sell your house. I mean, they made a deal right there on the lawn. And it was like, yeah, I was tired of cutting grass, and they moved into an apartment for a little while before, doing it again. But
so y'all were on the back end of that at that time? I mean, were you?
Yeah, we were on the back end. Yeah,
y'all were late in this. You were like trying to get back in New Orleans.
Right. We were certainly on the back end of the inventory. I mean, the inventory was dried up, and we really thought that we were going to get back into at least Metairie in one of our other family homes, in somebody else's house, and that wasn't going to happen either. So it was scary, but it ended up being, one of those moments that I said moment. I mean, it lasted longer than a moment, but it was a time frame that I'll always be grateful for now that we're through it.
Sure.
It
like
warmed
this whole situation.
Right. It shaped a lot of how we handle adversity as a family. Certainly personally, I think it prepared us for, all sorts of things and gosh, who knows what the future's gonna bring, but made us stronger. We got our businesses. We ended up getting our businesses open. Lafayette served as our home base as I ran back and forth. A lot of supplies came. I bought a lot of supplies here in Lafayette to bring it back in to build. The family was able to stay here safe and sound while I was
school.
Yeah, right. Schools and my wife was 4 months pregnant when that happened. So to have hospitals here that were functioning, right, that was important. There's just so much that Lafayette provided for us, and we fell in love with the city. We certainly at the time considered opening up a Rock and Bowl here, but then of course, when we were able to get back in there, we did, and we opened up Rock and Bowl, we opened up Yale College Inn, and within 2 years of that, we moved Rock and Bowl down the street to 2 years of that. By 2009, we had it built and open right next door to Yale College Inn. So none of that happens if Katrina doesn't hit. We become a dinner-only business. Our business becomes better than ever. We reshaped everything. We took a New Orleans landmark that had been there since 1933 and turned it into basically a very functional piece of history.
Yeah,
and not just some
destination.
Yeah, it really big blessing. So that happens, and then over time we just kept staying in touch with Lafayette. Al Lopez would touch base and throw us different options that were available in the market anytime there was a sizable space.
Yeah.
Eventually we found the old Whitney Bank building. And
yeah, and most people don't know this, and you don't mind me sharing this, because that's kind of when I know where you go. When I met you is we had the old trapeze facility,
right,
and you were hot on that. I mean, it was a river property.
Love that property.
The vision was huge, but it was much bigger of a project. I mean, the project you took on was enormous. But
yes, and yet that trapeze property was as big as the project was that we're still in, really. That trapeze was even bigger. And had some adversities that I just didn't feel comfortable with. I guess, I mean, who knows? Hindsight, who knows?
Well, I am, because I lived downtown at the time, and selfishly, I love the river, but I also love the fact that you're in downtown Lafayette.
Yeah.
I mean, being in Lafayette, the core of Lafayette, and
Right.
You've got to be, I mean, now with your other project, I mean, just being around this development and this progress downtown that we've seen in the last 10 years has been, especially in the last 24 months, it seems like since 2020,
Right.
we've really seen some leaps and bounds in what's been going on downtown. There's still challenges.
Sure. Sure. And so we're Rock and Bowl. That's of course the persona, and just like Rock and Bowl has a cachet to it. It's got a certain sexiness to it, and yeah, we can do so many different things in the food and beverage entertainment business. So, but at the core, what we do, I mean, it is all backed by real estate. Bowling itself is a real estate intensive business. It takes up a lot of space. And good space is hard to come by,
right?
Much less good space that is large. So it takes a unique fit. That building served a bunch of those purposes. But it also, what I guess people don't realize is that in New Orleans, that it was the same way. We made some what has proven to be. And of course, you really never know whether or not your decisions are sound until time plays out. But we made a number of successive real estate purchases at Carrollton and Earhart, across the street on Fig Street. Made a Fig and Carrollton, and across the street from New Orleans Seminary, Notre Dame Seminary, the Archdiocese there. It just two foundational corners, and that really has really laid the groundwork for what we're able to do and how we're able to control our properties and create a business that's going to withstand the test of time, hopefully, right? Like the ability to think generationally is founded in real estate purchase as opposed to leases.
Yeah, no.
If I'm in a lease and I've got 5 years left, that's a whole different ball game than thinking 10, 20, 50 years out. It's like, well, Johnny, do you have a 5-year plan? It's like, well, actually, no, I kind of have like a 50-year.
Right.
Yeah, right. Like I'm really thinking more or less like, what are my grandkids? How do they position themselves? How do my kids then, take this and move it? So that type of thinking is what I'm going after. Right. And so when we got to Lafayette, that I was immediately looking at, well, this is a great corner, no doubt about it. Downtown Lafayette has obviously seen its ups and downs.
No doubt.
Lafayette in general has seen its ups and downs, but what city hasn't?
Sure.
So how do I create an environment around me that's generational?
Right.
How do I make this investment long-term play out? And as I started to really dig in, I mean, really even before we actually made the purchase, I was digging into the fact that why are there no bedrooms downtown?
Right.
I mean, that was glaring. I think, if I remember right, it was 29.
Yeah.
There were 29 bedrooms.
Yes.
I think you had one.
Yeah. I mean,
couple of
it was basically nothing. I mean, we would ride, I'd get home from work, ride our bikes down to, I had a golf cart at the time. We'd ride our golf cart down to to the fountains and the bar. There's just nobody there.
Yeah.
I mean, and then, but now it's good to see there's actually people.
There's activity.
There's activity. And
yeah. There it is.
So going back to that corner, where did you go into this as like, okay, I'm gonna be putting a business into a place, so I'm gonna own or occupy a building, and I'm gonna own it, and then from that I'm gonna pivot and see what else I could control around my area, so that it has that that long term capabilities. Is that how you go into it?
Absolutely.
Way back then.
Absolutely.
So it wasn't just, hey, I just need a space for Rock and Bowl, because when you bought that building, you put the Rock and Bowl, you spent all your money, all your time into that,
right.
And then you had the office space above it,
Right.
and then you had the parking lots on the other side. And I mean, just kind of, you know, for a lot of people, that's overwhelming. It's hard enough just starting your business and getting that ready, much less thinking that far, you know, ahead. But I guess
the moment to moment is overwhelming at times. I mean, you know, let's not be naive,
right?
You know?
Sure.
And much less, you know, mix in COVID. I mean, but yes, we knew that we had a huge challenge. I felt like the purchase itself, the building was just a phenomenal building. I mean, the way that thing's built is just, it's exciting to like walk through it.
Yeah, I mean, I
really look
I like
at
it,
the
but
nuts and bolts of it. Yeah, I mean, it's a brick and it's a concrete steel structure, built by American Bank in you know, in the late 70s, and it went through, you know, American Bank was the first bank to be foreclosed on by the FDIC, you know, since the Depression.
Right.
And Whitney Bank ended up with it, so it was a Whitney Bank for the longest time.
Right.
But the building was built 5 stories. However, it was designed to hold 2 more stories.
Oh, okay.
So it's built to be 7. The air conditioning infrastructure on the roof, the chiller systems are have the redundancy and it's big, and you know, everything in there is just built to last and withstand the test of time. So it was an exciting building to be able to acquire. But with that too came a great piece of real estate on a great corner with great parking.
Yeah.
You know, we have the 2 parking lots across the street that came with the purchase, and then we have the parking that is down the street on Calumet that we lease some of it to the USDA. So there were leases in place, but the building itself, you know, to get back to the nuts and bolts of it, I mean, it was 70s office space that we had to start slowly renovating without breaking the bank.
Sure.
Because obviously we did spend a ton of money, you know, building Rock and Roll.
Yeah. Because you didn't just remodel, you also added 10,000 square feet.
Yeah. So 14,000 square feet was added to the first floor.
Yeah.
And
I gotta be honest, when Al's like, okay, we're gonna get the Whitney Bank for bowling alley, I was like, what the heck? How the hell is he gonna put a bowling alley in a Whitney Bank? And then you know, taking the parking lot, it started to make sense, and they had that drive through that you incorporated into the main entrance now, right?
Right.
I mean, just the vision was.
It took a little vision. I mean, but I tell people, like, I get complimented on that a lot. And I'm appreciative. I'm humbled by the compliment. Even architects, you know, like, hey, who thought of this? Who's your architect? Well, it was. I mean, I have an architect, but it was me. You know. And
I've seen you work with your architect, and it literally, if you've seen him work, it's literally a ruler and a piece of paper. I mean, there's no CAD file going on.
I don't know. You know, I see space pretty good, I guess. I've been told that.
Yeah.
But I think it really is more or less that whatever you're in is what you see.
Sure.
Right? So if you grow up in Rock and Roll, I mean, I'm 12 years old in a Rock and Roll.
Right.
So that means that everywhere I go, when I see a space that will fit, it just stands out to me.
Yeah.
If I see a piece of land, I know exactly whether or not that will fit.
Right.
It's because I think it's just because that's what you absorb.
Right.
I don't really think it's like some sort of talent. But at the same time, you know, that was an advantage because I think a lot of people were looking at that building and only seeing a bank.
Sure. Or an office building.
Yeah. You know, and so I also think that we had people in our market that thought about, well, you know, live, work, eat, play, all the things that you can do downtown. I don't think that's not an original idea. I think because we weren't doing it downtown, it was this attitude of, well, Lafayette doesn't want to do that.
Right.
Like, well, I don't buy that. I just still don't buy it.
And we know it's not true.
Right.
Because
we're doing it.
Yeah, we're doing it, and pretty much our occupancy's at 90+%.
Yeah.
As far as the new residential online.
They are. They're at 93% right now at municipal.
Buchanan Heights, I think we're managing that building, and that's full. I mean, we have people moving out every now and then. Stephen Artigo, Vermilion Lofts, they're rented out. I mean, you have units come available, but it's basically 100% occupied with one or two units, switched out.
Right. The perception that we don't, that they're not successful yet, is just false.
Sure. And the people who live downtown, like you and I, and the people on Calumet. Now, Ben Luke, my friend, just opened up the office.
Yeah, Ben, great job.
I mean, they love it. I mean, it's a different lifestyle.
It's a very convenient lifestyle,
no doubt. You don't need to commute lifestyle,
right?
Like when I would get home for 15 years, you parked the car on Friday, and I wouldn't have to get in my car ever again, and I'd have, from art walk to dinner to brunch to like festivals, Downtown Alive. I mean, there's just so much.
Always something.
Yeah.
There was always.
Yeah.
And the more critical mass that we can build on top of that, the more successful and the more options that will become available.
Yeah.
It's like, well, is there a chicken or egg on a downtown grocery? It's like, well, yeah, okay, great question. But I know this. You put bedrooms down there and you fill them, there's going to be a grocery.
That's right.
I mean, it's so the shop.
There's going to be a grocery. Eventually they're going to have like a workout place.
Right.
It's going to happen.
Right. I mean, we're going to put one in if we have to.
Yeah.
We'll not just have to. I mean, probably should.
Yeah.
Those type of more probably going to end up needing more coffee shops. We're all the coffee shop. Rev down there. What a phenomenal job those guys have done.
Great job.
I mean, Carpe Diem. Phenomenal job. Yeah. Those daytime.
What's your gelato over there?
Oh, I'm not. So I love coffee. I'm sitting here sipping on one too. So it's the espresso.
Hey, you tried I love the Biscoff.
Biscoff's phenomenal. My kids love it too. It's great.
It's great. Yeah. Anyway,
that's true.
Well, but great
point. My kids, we moved in there 7 years ago. Immediately, they had options from Borden's to Carpe Diem. Soon came Central Pizza.
Yep.
I
love the new Sunday place.
They've done.
What a phenomenal
idea. Examples of what's possible.
Yeah. And it was kind of Mike Astari did an amazing job, and I mean the way that they kind of fell into that was interesting too. Did he tell you?
No, he did.
Well, anyway, it's for another podcast. But he had an older lady was walking by, and he was renovating it, and she stuck her head in and said, "Hey, I remember when this was a soda shop."
Oh, wow.
And they had some really cool like tile flooring, and he's like, "Oh, really?" And then he started doing the research, and sure enough, he found those pictures of it being the soda shop from back then. Because originally he was going to do a bakery.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was going to bake like cupcakes and desserts for Central. And anyway, it was just very interesting. So, when you go in there, now you can see, found all of those pictures in the board.
Right. No, I saw that. I just didn't.
And underneath the floor was the mosaic, flooring, which was super
unbelievable. I stuck my head. I was walking by while they were renovating twice. I stuck my head in, and I was just blown away. I think they've done the best job of anybody on the street.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Of putting together, a relevant step back in time.
Yeah,
it's not just a BS step back. Like it's relevant.
Yeah, and it's authentic.
Yeah,
like it's super cool.
Totally.
Well, actually, we had our Christmas party down there, and we went to. I showed up I had to go get my car because I left my car downtown. I show up and get my car, and I'm like, hey, let's go to the Sunday shop. We get the Sunday, and then Tommy's in there, our video guy. He's got his whole family because he's picking up his car, and he went to, then you got the planetarium, then you got the museums, the children's museum, and then you end up spending all day downtown. And then we go to Rock and Bowl, and that night we had a cotillion with my daughter was doing cotillion at Rock and Bowl. So I mean, it's now like you can literally go downtown, and now that I live there, I go there and it's a destination you can spend all afternoon.
People think I'm crazy when I say that it's a family atmosphere, and then until you experience it, I guess you just don't know.
We're gonna sit here all day if we don't get back on subject. So Rock and Bowl, when you finalized it, I know you had like the DA and everybody up in the office complex.
Yeah.
What was the thought of that originally? Like lease it out to office space, because then you moved in.
Right.
Did you ever have the idea of turning that into residential?
Yes.
And why didn't you do residential? You just thought it was better suited for office space?
Okay, so it turns out that from a code perspective, it was going to be cost prohibitive to put residential in the building on any scale.
Okay.
Owner occupy is permitted.
So you could build
I could put myself in, but I wouldn't be able to go and put in, a residential. The exit capacity is built for what it is.
Yeah.
To change that to a residential, the exit capacity raises because you might have a house party.
Right.
That's how that works.
That's right. Yeah.
So I realized when I did my due diligence
and sewer capacity.
Right. Then you've got that, right? And downtown, we know, has some sewer capacity issues that this administration is finally fixing.
Yeah.
And kudos to them and then the city council for realizing the size of this problem. DDA's worked their butts off to do it too. Many developers have gotten involved and pushed the needle. So that's no longer really gonna stay, be in the way, right? There's still challenges there, but it's moving. So I knew that, okay, that's not gonna work. But I got it. Obviously, I have to do something with the office space. And did I know what was gonna work for the office space? No. I learned a few different things along the way. If you wait around for the perfect tenant, you're probably just going to be just keep waiting.
Sure.
I learned that I needed to go and renovate space. I mean, you helped me with a lot of this. Renovate the space, give them something pretty to look at.
Vision.
Yeah, you got to set.
Not everybody has your vision.
Yeah, right. I can walk in and see what I want.
This could be perfect, but a lot of people, when they come in there, like, I don't know about this.
You got to go do that. So, COVID, though, was really rough, but I was blessed to be able to figure out how to really squeeze some pennies together when we had no cash flow and start piece by piece renovating one after the other. And as I renovated and filled one, I did the next. And then COVID lasted so long that I ended up completing that.
Yeah.
And it ended up being huge.
Well, and also as you improve you started in one corner of the building on the top floor, but then that gave the ability to bring somebody in there. They could see it, and then we could say, well, yeah, we've leased up this space. Now this space is available. But that just goes to, and I talk to developers all the time and business owners, I had a meeting yesterday. You've got to be prepared to do the work in order to get them in.
Yes.
People, and it always happens this way. I mean, we all want a proposed construction deal and sign the dotted line and then do the construction, because then it's no risk. But in actuality, majority of the deals, majority of the properties in the houses, we don't go under contract until it's almost done. Most people don't know that.
Right.
And with businesses, whether it's townhomes or offices or we have the development on Johnson Street Forum. Now the building's going up, so now we're getting the interest because they can see it.
Yeah.
It's hard to sell the vision.
Sure.
Not to mention the timeline. I mean, most of the people that want to move into your building, they don't want to wait 8 months.
Correct.
They're
a lot of times it's an emergency.
Yeah.
They thought they were working out a deal somewhere else, wherever they were, and then it falls through and falls apart, and now they need a space. And, do you have something? I mean, and a lot of it, one begets two begets three. I mean, it just starts multiplying. You get the, like you said, you build that one vision, you get it straight. Somebody comes in, they like the space, or maybe you built it for them, however that goes, and they see the next client comes walking in, sees that and wants that vision too, and then it just starts snowballing. Word of mouth.
Yeah.
I mean,
that other guy, his friend comes in the office like, yeah, this is cool. What I think makes Rock and Bolt the most unique office building in Lafayette, or maybe in the South, is that because you don't even have this in New Orleans, but you have this office building, and then you have Rock and Bolt. So like literally, there's a conference room, there's a ballroom, there's VIP rooms, and you got live entertainment, you've got bowling, you've got a restaurant. I mean, there's just literally, you can entertain, go to work, go grab a cup of coffee at Rev or Carpe Diem, go to work, go to lunch, walk downtown, do whatever you want. And then in the afternoons, you can have entertain clients. You can have people, join you for just a cocktail or whatever. So I think that's one of the things that, there is no other place like that in our area.
Yeah. And so to get back to this project. Yeah. So when I got to so before I even got here, I knew that we already established it. I knew we didn't have enough bedrooms downtown. I knew that was a potential problem. I also didn't think, Lafayette's operating in a vacuum, meaning I did my research, get on Google, you start figuring out, okay, what cities are between the 150,000, 250,000 people across the South. Let's go dig into their downtown areas. I look at their downtown areas. Everybody has started populating it. There's apartment complexes everywhere. Let's check occupancies. Occupancies are high.
Right.
I'm going from one city to the next, and then I realize, I can't find any other city besides Lafayette that hadn't turned residential downtown. I mean, let's face it.
What do you think that is? You think it was a perception thing, or just they were waiting for that first deal, the first?
I think it was I think a lot of different pieces. I don't think you can point to one thing. But one of the major problems was sewer capacity.
Right.
So, anybody that got past got past the idea part, eventually ran into the roadblock of sewer capacity.
Sure.
So that's a major, and then drainage, because as soon as you go, and for instance, when I put that building on top of the parking lot, people would think, the parking lot was already runoff, right? So when it rains, it's going to hit the parking lot and go. Yeah, but it's going in certain directions already. You put a rooftop on there, it now goes in a different direction.
Sure.
So you have to figure out, where are you going to put that water?
Right.
You got to go hire somebody to do a study. There's an engineer, locally, thank God, there was a great guy here named Jimmy Ricks. He figured out where I needed to put the water so that I wouldn't end up flooding my neighbors.
Sure.
Those issues, we were so low on drainage, and still are, but we're correcting that. And we were so low on sewer capacity, so we weren't going to get the growth. I also think that there's some other things there's some other psyche things that play out.
Yeah.
Let's face it. We're surrounded by a lot of farmland. It's pretty cheap in the scheme of things to buy. Yeah.
Which New Orleans didn't have.
Correct.
right? I mean,
and a lot of urban areas don't have that. I mean, there's some sort of waterway that stops, that limits growth at some point,
right?
To where you got to start turning back to the end and inside and going up. Lafayette, it just didn't. There's just a lot of different space that you can go grab that was less expensive. I think we're seeing though the growing pains of that now. I mean, let's face it. Lafayette has taken on a lot of that sewer and waste and drainage, and then we've changed how the land absorbs the runoff, and there's been a lot of that, right?
Yeah,
so
100%.
And by no means do I claim to be an authority on any of that, but I recognize that it's an issue, and so turning to the urban core is inevitable at some point, but I think more important than that is there's a segue going on in our economy that is driving the potential for growth more than anything, and that is the job market. I mean, when our cousins, or maybe even ourselves, like we were all pretty much our eye on the oil field as we grew, right?
Yeah.
Our family's eye on the oil field. Well, I think we'll always have something there for us, but we've had to turn in a different direction in South Louisiana and look for other ways. And now there's some other opportunities. The logistics corridor that of I-49, I-10 drove a lot of my anecdotal evidence. So, I'm looking at the data and I'm saying, okay, this is a good idea, but I need somebody to tell me that I need more than just that. I need something that's like going to give me a feel for this. And then all of a sudden that logistics corridor starts popping up, and I've got a couple of guys in the building that are leasing office space for me, and they sit at computers all day long fixing the back end of how your packages route, right? They're hired guns, so to speak, for these companies that do this and move packages. Well, they're here. And then the people that are working actually in the corridor, they're coming in a rocking bowl and they're walking up to me, and I mean, a lot of times we can spot somebody that's not from here from a mile away.
Right.
I mean, not always, but a lot of times we can. Hey, how you doing? New couples coming in. Where y'all live here? Yeah, we just moved. Where you from? Birmingham. Where you from? Nashville. Yeah. Really? Why'd you come here? Well, working for, XYZ company that's related to the Amazon plan or the FedEx or the UPS or whatever, right? And I'm like, oh, really? Where y'all live? Well, that's kind of, we're renting a house in Karen Crow, and what we really were looking for, we used to live in a condo, and we had an apartment in Birmingham. Right. They don't have any of that down here, I'm like, oh, all right. So enough of that, like the repetitiveness of that, I was like, okay, there's something here. There's
well, and you had the potential, right? Just from the Whitney Bank building, you had the parking lot, and you'd always said, "Look, I got enough parking to do something with half of it." And then you had the opportunity to buy the general office supply, which came with the property across the street where the city court is, behind the city court, right?
Right.
So that's kind of, I remember you having that conversation, like, okay, I've got this ability to do something here, and then turn that general office supply to like a corridor of sorts, with either it could be a one tenant or it could be multiple tenants with a walkthrough or whatever.
Exactly.
So it was literally the fact that you were just face to face running across people that, that's what it took to say, okay, well, I'm seeing it with my own eyes. That,
people come going beyond just some data, so those, I had enough of those interactions that I was starting to feel more comfortable about it. And then, of course I know a bunch of guys that, and gals that are in this business. Started asking them, you're in the apartment business. How's this play out? How's this work? Construction guys, and start talking to them about it. And so just started moving forward with the idea in my head. Then the city did a number of very wise, made a number of very wise investments. You had the sewer, drainage, and the allocated funds for a parking garage. The city then figures out as they're in the process of allocating those funds or afterwards, I don't know, they probably knew before, that they needed a specific size piece of land to do it feasibly. You build a parking garage and you get an engineer out there to design to fit a certain space.
Sure.
You're paying one price for that. I mean, it's pretty significant. You buy precast concrete where it's already engineered, then you have certain shit
I did
have to deal with, right?
Right.
Now that price is different. That price becomes potentially less, in most cases less. Of course, that depends upon how big you build,
sure,
right? But if you're just comparing apples to apples, the precast, pre-engineered, ready to go, it's probably sitting up there. Well, it is. It's sitting up near Dallas, right? And they'll truck it in and they'll put it up. And well, those spaces per space, you're looking at a different number. So the city was, I think, faced with, well, we need to find a piece of property for a precast, because if we have to go and retrofit a spot to fit a garage and have it, that's not going to work anyway. And we need something sizable. We need to be able to have something that activates multiple blocks.
Right.
All that was going on at the city level. I think, at some point somebody realized that I had purchased more real estate than they had in that area where they wanted to put it. They wanted to put it on that end somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And then they approached me and said, if we make an investment near you, could you do something that makes sure that this investment that we're making, is utilized?
Yeah.
And I said, well, yeah, I have an idea, and kind of spitballed it a little bit and started working through it.
Well, tell us, introduce us to this new project that.
Sure.
That's for
so that's the corner of Convent and Lee. Currently, there's City Court is there.
Right.
Convent and Lee, Rock and Bowl, of course, is here, and then the old City Hall is across the street with the triangle.
That's right.
DDA's office there. No.
That's where they just put all the drainage.
Right. There's a bunch of drainage that went in the ground there. And there's a lot more scheduled for Lee Avenue.
Because we got, I've got Rob Perillo coming in later this month, because I was having an argument with one of my friends, and I was like, man, I haven't seen any problems since they fixed a lot of, since they've added the drainage there, and then also in the overflow lots across town. I haven't seen any flooding.
Right.
And he's like, well, it just hasn't happened. I was like, well, I'm going to ask Rob Perillo, did we just not have enough rain, or did they fix the problem? Because it seems like to me, it seems like we've had a lot of rain this year, and I haven't seen any flood.
We've had some major rain events, and it has definitely worked. There's more coming too. They're going to do a lot more. To make sure that, I'm not an expert in this, but we've all heard of the 100-year event and the 500-year event and all that, right? So they're doing their homework to get downtown in a situation where its problem is fixed without messing up downstream.
Right.
This, in spite of what talking heads want to sit there and criticize, if you go sit in these meetings and you spend the time that, and believe me, it's not fun, but I've spent the time to sit and listen. They really are doing a great job.
Right.
It's refreshing. Especially, look, I've seen the worst of some government. So this is, Convent and Lee. It's going to go back to Stewart Street. Across the street from that is the municipal, which is the old federal courthouse that's been renovated and turned into apartments, where we bought the rest of the block up until the one So one lot before you hit Johnston.
Okay.
So we actually own, Ye Old College Inc. That's our real estate holding company. We own more real estate right there than the city does.
Right.
Okay. So
where the city, right here, this corner.
Correct.
Yeah.
The city owns that corner.
Yeah.
They own a few hundred feet back. I own the rest. Our project overall is double the land size of what the city has. So we're going
and you can't. I mean, the building is past this. I mean, they're gonna have to tear that down,
right?
No matter what. I mean,
right?
Do you know? I know they have to move the city court somewhere. Do they have an idea where that's gonna move?
To my knowledge, they have a couple of options.
Okay.
And they're working through that. And so I have confidence that cooler heads will prevail when that happens, that Judge Saloon and Reggie Thomas, who's doing a great job there. I mean, like they're going to figure this out for the better of downtown.
Yeah, and hopefully they end up with a better place.
Yeah, I think they're going to end up in
it's not adequate.
Anybody that's gone with their daughter because she got a little parking ticket, taking our great grandmother to the to get some ice cream, knows that is a not the best situation.
Right.
They can that Lafayette can do better. It's past its use.
So they're calling it a public-private partnership. Are you guys? Is it a land swap, or is it
basically?
It's a land.
And there's a lot of details there that are going to get.
I mean, that's
and go before the city council.
City council would be, hey, this is what we could do. You take this space, do what y'all need, and I'll enhance this corner so that it brings it. Because right now
we basically have to re-subdivide.
Yeah.
Right. We have to re-subdivide our properties. I will end up with less land than I started with. They will end, as in the city of Lafayette, taxpayer of Lafayette.
The swap is you're gonna end up with less square footage.
Yeah,
and then they'll end up with more, but they'll be able to do what they want. You get what you want on that side, and it'll frankly, I would much rather see something like this at that corner than a parking tower.
Correct.
Put the parking tower in the back, have this in the front.
I have physically visited a very similar project. And
where is that?
It's in Houston. Now it's similar in this respect, not in the shops that are there and the dynamics of the whole complex, but similar in this way. The parking garage is not seen.
Yeah.
Right.
So I did a tour with Lafayette City 10 years ago. We went down there to look at parking garages and there's to Houston and we took a Greyhound bus with all the wires and we went down and did a tour of exactly that, this exact model where you're wrapping the parking garage, right? Whether it's commercial in the front or residential, the storefront, and then put the parking in the back.
So DDA has, and the city of Lafayette have a vision for Lee Avenue, that this will kick off that vision.
Nice.
Because it's Lee Avenue, look, this is not my analogy here, but it's this others, but I'm going to steal it. More of a Magazine Street atmosphere and not a Bourbon Street atmosphere. Right. So shops, restaurants, not bar rooms. And so this corner would be the entryway for that. And Lee Avenue is going to get some streetscape changes as they do the drainage project.
Right.
So it makes it to where it's a lot more walkable. If you go there right now, the sidewalks, I mean, I walk Lee a lot.
Yeah.
The sidewalks just aren't walkable. You can't hold hands with your wife and stay on the sidewalk together.
No.
Okay.
No, you can't.
So we're going to change that. We're going to expand it.
Which, I mean, and it's not that far that you have to go because this will be the entrance from the Jefferson Street side. And then, then you've got Ashby Crossing on the other side, which they're improving. And then you've got Park International, Park Salsa C. I mean, it is that
Yeah.
Really, it could be that really cool street that
It's cool as can be.
Yeah.
The fire department there on that corner is cool as can be.
it is.
Okay, so if you make that a pedestrian corridor that's much more, I mean, cars will be there too, but if you make that a better place to walk, more lit, there's a number of properties there that can now be put back into commerce and have relevance again.
That's right.
Behind the Methodist church,
So
there's just tremendous amount of land that goes all the way to Johnston Street that has been just locked up because, and a lot of this has to do with the fact that Calumet dead ends at Jefferson.
Right.
Okay, well, we're going to build inside of, where the general office space is. We're going to build a pedestrian corridor that you were referring to. We're putting another apartment building on the corner of Calumet and Jefferson, and people as well as tenants will be able to go back and forth from Jefferson to Convent, and then you will be able to walk through this property to get to Stewart, which then makes Stewart all the way basically to Maine, and then Vermilion. All of that can get activated and be put back, and then people can start building more, whatever it is that becomes, the most feasible thing and the best thing to do.
So there's going to be a walkway internal because that's
we're going to be able to go through that garage,
right there, and you go right through.
Right. So you can go
Stewart.
Right.
And then if they ever activate that behind the Methodist Church, then you can go all the way through to Jackson. Possibly. Well,
I mean, this garage that will be in the apartments. It's going to transform downtown in a way that probably hadn't seen since it's been built.
Well, and you started this transformation, when you renovated the Whitney Bank building. Because let's face it, between Lee and Johnson Street was completely dead.
Yeah,
you had Keller's right there, and then you have they had a couple of restaurants at that corner, but it just died.
Never, right.
And then you had the gas station across the street. They redid that landscape. I remember when they did it. They did the streetscape, and then nothing really happened till you came along. And then now we have, and of course we always had the filling station, which is now Spoonville, which is fine. The food is good and the atmosphere is cool.
Right.
And so it just activated that whole corner, and now this is just a continuation going down the street, and then hopefully Ashby Crossing, can start to meet in the middle, because that parking lot is.
They're going to do a phenomenal job on those corners. Their plans will fold right into what Lee Avenue is doing. It's an entryway into the city as well, into downtown. The parks are there. There's so much already there. Right. But we need residents to use it. And look, you need a 24-hour business cycle. Downtown has, since the change in times, and people's needs, suburban sprawl, all that kind of stuff. And now, of course, there's a lot of turn inward across the country. How do you revitalize downtowns? Well, this is how you do it. To act like
I'm not going to say this is how you do it. You add residents.
And you add residents, and you need parking.
Yeah.
I mean, look, we'd all love to not have to look at parking.
Right.
We'd all love to not have the necessity of garages. We're just not there.
Right.
And look, we can debate whether or not we ever will be. That's fine. But this is reality. This scenario tackles that issue without the eyesore.
And not to mention, you're taking a building that has zero tax dollars, and you're converting it, and you're putting it into commerce.
Correct.
Creating more tax that can go towards infrastructure and improving the current area, which, we also have the ED. I don't know if the EDD will affect this. I don't know if, if they can use any of that money for some of the sidewalks or infrastructure.
Right.
The more taxes in the area, the better.
Correct.
And then the parking is a major situation, like just to make sure you don't lose capacity.
Yeah.
which I don't think we're at capacity right now. But I mean, I do to build more, you need more parking.
You need more parking, right? Absolutely. I mean, and the site will lease space from the city's going to end up with a built-in tenant, and when they build the garage, I mean, it's a great deal for everybody.
Yeah. So is that how it's going to work? So you're going to swap the land, and then you're gonna lease out the apartments and and then you'll have commercial downstairs, coffee shop, whatever,
right?
Sandwich joint, and then they're going to lease space from the city at a monthly rate, and then and it'll also be a public garage.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have a management company that operates the garage and we will then tenants will be able to lease space. Well, they're going to basically be built in, and they'll lease space. But then, yes, the commercial client will then inevitably, depending upon what they, how they choose to handle it, right? Rock and Roll will need it. I'll have it. I have events often where, boom, you get hundreds and hundreds of people, and then all of a sudden, sometimes there's nights when people come. It seems like they all came in one car.
Right.
I mean, nobody carpools.
There's no ride, rhyme or reason.
Yeah, there's no rhyme or reason in that.
But you're going to be, if you're building apartments on that other lot behind Keller's, I mean, you're going to need more parking.
I'm going to need the parking.
When you have
building in need for that.
Yeah.
By activating that corner too. Also, let's face it, there's other buildings right there that could be maybe better use if they had access to park. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, cleaners, the Golden Cleaners that's there, all day.
They don't have any parking.
They don't have any parking. They'd love to have some spots, right? 232 Help needs space. The law offices, the good law offices is on the other corner. Artmosphere needs space. Blue Moon needs space. There's so many there where customers can pull in now safely, well lit, not just the tenants. There's going to be far more parking spaces than there are tenants.
So the bottom floor is going to be commercial. How much space are you going to have? So if somebody was interested, they,
Oh, wow. So let's get to that. We'll pull that. Let's see. So we're minimizing the amount of commercial space compared to the obviously the push is to make sure that there's tenants there.
Right.
But we're going to have, somewhere around 10,000 square feet.
Okay. Bottom floor,
right there on the corner. We thought after many discussions with DDA and the city, it became evident that the corner of Stewart and Lee is going to end up being a key corner for retail for the future of Lee Street.
Right.
Lee Avenue. So that's where we focused our efforts, and then the corner of Convent and Lee is going to serve us more as like a reception space for the tenant.
Well, and people don't realize this because Lafayette, you don't know which direction you're going in, and the roads go different. They turn, and Buchanan and Congress and Second. It's all kind of intertwined, but you don't realize that and you and I know this because we live downtown. Lee is the shortcut to
everything.
Everything. Like, so you could take, basically you've got Jefferson does like a horseshoe.
Yeah.
And Lee just cuts across the back sides. So it's awesome because you could take during festival, if you want to take the long route and make it back to Park International, you can, or you can go straight to Vermilion from Lee.
Right.
You Park Sans Souci, and then a block away is Park International. So it's really only like 3 blocks.
Yeah.
From Brock and Bowl to Park International, and then you'll have Ashby Crossing, and so it's a shortcut.
People don't realize
it lends itself to be a great little.
It's a unique street grid too. It's actually interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I love going into downtowns all across the country whenever the heck I get the chance to be somewhere else and figuring all that out. And this one's actually kind of fun. It is. And this is basically the retail corner,
Mm-hmm.
and then so right now look, as you know, you build it. Someone may end up deciding they want to take over 2 spaces, but 2,200, 1,500, 2,100, 1,400, and then we plan to put the leasing office on that Convent Street corner. Right now we've got a couple of courtyards that face Convent Street. We're gonna have great sidewalks all the way around. The garage entries, there's gonna be one on Stewart as well as one on Convent. And then this is the old general office space, and this shows sort of a park atmosphere where you're gonna be able to walk through it to get to our our other units that will be a little bit different shaped and give a different product mix.
Like more with townhouse and parking in the back.
That's right.
That is.
That's right.
And then how many units are you going to have?
208 total.
Holy cow.
Yeah, it'll be the biggest one so far, 200.
Wow. I did not realize.
Yeah. There's the studies that were done for Lafayette, are in the thousands range as far as capacity for downtown. We're nowhere near that. I'm sure that there's always naysayers. Oh, you're going to overbuild and all that. It's like, well,
dude, they've had this study since 2009, and they updated in 2011.
Yeah,
that they spent. I think the city spent like $400,000 for that study, and it
never moved the needle.
It didn't move a needle, but to be honest with you, they've been dead on.
Correct.
But I don't know, like the prices that they were predicting for the lofts, the soft lofts, the hard lofts, because we sold Buchanan lofts and everything.
Good point.
They all fell in line with exactly what the prices had suggested in 2011.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's interesting, and the demand that they had predicted back then was like 7,000 units or something crazy.
So demand. There's the other thing. One of the things I learned, besides people walking into Rock and Bowl, were when we were leasing up the space above for the office tenants. As companies like SchoolMint come in, Copter, of course they come and look at my space, and others.
Yeah.
They look at the space and then you get to know a few people, you're talking to them, and all of us, like, hey, how's business? Now that they've moved here, and I'm hearing the same thing. Well, business is good, this or that. Well, but our employee, it doesn't really have the product mix of apartment units and condo units that they were used to in our old city, and that's what they want again. They want the lifestyle of downtown.
Yeah, no doubt.
And being able to have a walkable lifestyle when they're not at work. And they're missing that.
Yeah.
They don't want to have to get in their car. So those companies, if we're going to continue to attract them to Lafayette, as we were talking about earlier with the diversification of getting away from just being an oil field driven community, we need to provide these type of products for people. And I'd make the analogy, when you go to the grocery store, there's a whole bunch of different cheeses.
Yeah.
I mean,
you're right.
And there's a lot of them that sell real well.
Yeah.
We're missing a few cheeses on this real estate board.
Yeah.
So this is just one product.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist yet.
Well, it's super cool, man. I'm very excited to see this. Now, tell us the timeline. What are we looking at here? Is this going to really happen in the next 5 years, or is it 2 years, or?
Yeah, I mean, somebody quoted me as saying 3 to 5, and I did not say that. I was asked by someone about, less than, more than 3, more than 5. I was like, well, no, less than 5. It takes me that long to build this. No, I think we're moving a lot faster than than we probably predicted. This is already a couple years in the making. I mean, technically you could say it's 7 years in the making with just since I started looking at Lafayette. I don't have a timeline until we get the city finalized.
Sure.
They've got this. I don't want to speak out of turn for the city. The city has some steps that they need to take so that we can go take our steps.
Well, and I'm just going to go back real quick because I don't want to give people the wrong impression, and I don't if you can divulge this or not, but like I know you've been talking about a project with the property that you owned for 7 years, but were you talking to the city? Has that been happening?
No, it's not.
No. So I mean that wasn't even on the table. This is
It wasn't until they decided that they needed a garage that they were going to, and the city council
when did that
allocated the funds.
Did that happen when that other garage went on Buchanan? Is that when they started thinking, okay, well, we got to take this offline? Because that's when they saw the problem with the courthouse. They had instantly when they shut that down, they had no parking, and so that got them thinking, how are we gonna?
Do I remember exactly that timeline? But that's roughly
7 years ago.
No, that's roughly correct.
Conspiring to work with.
We're talking less than 2 years.
And so, what's the next steps that have to happen for all of this to the catalyst of this?
So the next steps are for the city to finish. The city and I to finish the negotiations on how to best go about the swap, and the framework of how that garage gets built. And I think they're on their way with that. Could be any day now. I think the city also has to go and truly identify what's going to happen with city court. It's foolish to think you're going to shut down city court before you even so that you can go build a parking garage and apartment complex. I mean, that's not going to happen. I mean, and that's anyway. Those things are in the works. Once that happens, well, then we're going to be off to the races.
So once
our ducks are in a row on our end.
But so the city and the administration has to figure out, okay, they've got to present it to everybody. Right. Then here's here's their proposal where how all the pieces are going to fall.
Yeah.
And then you go to the city council, and then they approve the swap.
Right.
And then once that swap's done, then you purchase the property.
Right.
Or swap it, and then now you can. Borrow money against the land and start.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And, for us, financing is well on the way. I mean, I say well on the way. I mean, that's all part of what we've already worked on.
Sure.
We're at that point where it's like, okay, we've got a viable product. If we build this now, you guys go do what you need to do to make this land available for building. But there's, I don't think the cart's not before the horse on this.
Sure.
It's just a process.
Yeah.
And, I feel good about it. I don't know that we have the ability to say, well, it's going to be day one, day two, like the headline at the time.
Right. Man, it's just super exciting. How about now? Are you going to wait to do the Jefferson Street project until the parking charges
it all at once?
Okay,
all at once. Same contractor, same build, same financing.
Can you share the contractor?
We haven't.
You haven't decided yet. So as soon as that happens, and the general office supply, is that going to be an open air or is that going to be covered?
We're showing right now an open air, but that's still up for. That's still actually one of the pieces where I don't think it's going to end up being open air. I think it's going to end up making more sense for everybody to cover it.
Yeah. Well, if you cover it, you could have vendors in there.
I would also like to keep the building. From a historical standpoint. I mean, look, not that that's a historic building, okay, but I just think that there's a cool factor to that building still, and that it can serve us in the utilitarianism
in a different capacity. It could be cool. I mean, the fact that it's a corridor, I mean, you can make it really cool.
Yeah, and as my architect corrects me all the time, it's a paseo, Johnny. Yeah, it's not an interior sidewalk, Johnny. It's a paseo.
Because it's how wide is that? It's got to be 50.
Oh gosh, yes, it is. It's roughly 50. I don't know. I don't remember. It's 53 or 50, but it's 50.
Well, man, dude, it's just been, this is such a amazing project, and it's it's so good from my perspective, my family, to see just to see downtown evolve over the last 10 years. I mean, this is the stuff that we were promised 10 years ago, 20 years ago, I mean, when I can't believe it's already, it's been 20 years since I moved back from Colorado, but like, that's when they were saying downtown, and it just got stuck. I feel like we were in a time warp for the last 15 years, and then now we've kind of just caught up. I don't know if it was just the timing or what, but, I think back to where we started the podcast, where you said, when your family went through Katrina, and those obstacles really, you couldn't trade that. And it's because, I read a book recently, it's called Obstacles Away, and it's like, without those obstacles, you don't have any growth, right? And so, like, most people don't see the obstacles that you went through to get to where you are. I mean, they think, oh, well, you just instantly brought rock and roll here, and you had a built-in business and everything. But, like, to really see that, and it's not just our businesses, it's also downtown.
Yeah.
We had to get through and go through the problems and the crises, the everything we went through, we had to in order to grow, so it's interesting to see now this all coming to fruition with, the federal courthouse, with what Stevens doing, with Ashby, with Buchanan Heights, and just, it's all flourishing. It seems like, it took off, it seems like, during COVID, which is weird,
Yeah.
I remember having lunch with you at Spoonbill. And we were talking about COVID coming from China, and I was like, what is this crazy stuff like?
I know, we didn't see it coming. But the obstacles, it's like, my dad and I were, I guess, sort of reminiscent about this. Katrina, obviously, it'll always, and COVID then ends up now taking up a whole new space in, like, a timeline. Like, you can set your timelines as, like, before, after Katrina, before, after COVID.
Yeah, right.
But I know. Well, but the the purchase of this property, my dad and I were like, not only did we made it through the obstacle of Katrina, he says, but did you realize that when we did Rock and Bowl Lafayette, we decided to buy that building. You, meaning me, I was a year removed from pancreatic cancer. And my dad was 6 months removed from a triple bypass. And I'm like, yeah, we didn't even think of that. It didn't even cross our minds that we should do anything else but proceed. And why we chose Lafayette? Oh gosh, good Lord above. I don't know. I mean, it seemed like all roads kept leading back to it. We looked at a lot of places across this country, and it just kept pointing us back over here. And was it Katrina and bringing us here? Was it my mother? Was it a combination of all that? Probably so. I don't know.
Well, man, on behalf of everybody in Lafayette, we're glad that you're here in Lafayette.
Yeah,
glad we got you here. We're grateful to have Rock and Bowl and for your project and your vision and just your your relentlessness to continue to grow has been inspirational to most people here in Lafayette. So we appreciate it, and I appreciate you having you as podcast, brother.
Maybe get better and we get worse, right?
That's it, brother. Thank you, man.
Thank you.